Hi, welcome. My name's Justyn.
And I'm Rachel.
And thank you so much for joining us on these short videos as we talk through some excerpts from our Wellbeing Through Faith group. Today we're going to be thinking about fear and anxiety, something that there's a lot of in our world at the moment.
Yeah. We're going to look at what the Bible says about anxiety, how anxiety impacts us, and what we can do to reduce the impact of anxiety.
So Rachel, let's dive in. What is anxiety?
Yep, so as you say, anxiety is everywhere at the moment. Anxiety is something that we all experience, and in itself, anxiety is actually not a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing if it is prolonged or misplaced as well, or if our anxiety is very, very severe.
So to give us an example, where might anxiety help us?
Yep, so if you've got to do an exam, anxiety is what actually helps you, gives you that drive to actually do all the work that you need to do for your exam. So there is an optimum functioning for anxiety. So having a little bit of anxiety can really help you perform in some situations and actually make you get things done.
Yeah. But then it can become unhelpful, kind of, when there's too much anxiety. Actually, it's not helping us do what we need to do well in life, to stay safe, to achieve. Yeah. Actually, it starts to work against us. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
So an example for me is on my very first driving test, I failed very, very badly, and that was due to anxiety. I just literally crumbled and couldn't do it. So there is definitely a time where anxiety can be too severe, and for some people it might be too prolonged. So it might be that they're feeling anxiety symptoms every single day, and sometimes there isn't. They're just sat in their house, but there's actually no reason, but they're just feeling all of the physical symptoms of anxiety that we're going to talk about. They're feeling them all the time. Or sometimes it can be that anxiety is misplaced. So the situations that you're in, they might be a little bit scary, but actually the way our body responds, which we're going to talk about a bit more, is much more exaggerated than the situation that we actually are in.
Right.
And that's called the fight, flight or freeze response.
So a little bit of anxiety helps us prepare and do well, but then too much can work against us, and then you're so nervous that you can't find the clutch on your driving test, or actually then it can be completely misplaced. So actually we're not in a dangerous situation, but we feel like we are, and it affects how we function. Talk to us about the fight, flight or freeze response.
Yes, so the fight, flight or freeze, it's an automatic natural response that our body does. So everyone experiences it at different times, whether it's a driving test, whether it's an exam, every situation that we go into, if it's new, we might feel a little bit of the fight, flight or freeze response. And that is a physical response, and it's our body reacting to what we're perceiving as danger at the time. So it might not be that we're in danger, it's not a life or death situation. It was actually developed with our ancestors. So years and years and years ago, when someone would be in front of a tiger, this system would kick into place where you can either fight, flight or freeze. So you'd run away or you'd just freeze to know what to do next. So what happens, there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, and we sometimes refer to that as the meerkat part of the brain, because it's a part of the brain that's on guard, it's always on the lookout, and that will pick up on threat around us. So in our life it is normally an exam or a presentation or something like that. The amygdala will send messages to the other part of the brain, and then this response will happen in your body, and lots of physical changes will occur. And that could be an increased heart rate. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. It could be increased breathing, it could be sweating and things like that. It's actually a really good thing that your body's doing, because it's preparing to either fight a situation or run away. And it's all for survival, that's why it happens. But it feels very, very uncomfortable if it's misplaced, or if you're experiencing that a lot for a long time.
So I've got our little body map here. Let's think a little bit more about some of those symptoms then that we experience. So you mentioned that our heart starts pounding, and that's to get the blood moving around our body, isn't it? So our muscles have got...
It's ready to fight, and that's adrenaline all coming to our body. And that's the first thing that a lot of people notice will be the increased heart rate.
Yeah. Another thing that I experience is definitely butterflies in the tummy, or it feels like your stomach's kind of gone on you, and you start to kind of feel all those horrible feelings on the inside.
And that's all the blood moving away from your digestive system, again, to go to your muscles so you can fight. So there's a really good reason for all of those things.
Yeah. Sweaty palms you talked about. Yeah. So we can often notice that we've gone a bit clammy. What else might we experience?
For some people you might shake, so that can be your hands, that can be your legs. And again, you're ready to fight or run away. And it's when the adrenaline, it's when it's not used, so you're not fighting. It's when it's not used, that's when you can shake then, because you're actually stood still. You've got this extra adrenaline, and that's why you might shake. And again, you can get headaches.
Headaches, yeah. So you're starting to feel that kind of tension and that pressure physically in your head. Right? And all of that is happening because your brain has told your body that it's in danger, it needs to fight a tiger or run away from a fire or whatever the threat that our body might perceive, but actually we might not be in that position, might we?
And that's when because you don't want to feel those symptoms, so we avoid situations. So what happens then is people might not want to leave their house or might not want to be around other people because they experience those physical reactions. So the natural thing to do is to avoid it, but then quality of life can be impacted and we can be quite restricted. So it's just thinking about how we can manage that, and that's what we're going to talk about as well later.
So before we think about that, why don't you just hit pause now, maybe grab yourself a bit of paper and a pen, get yourself a hot drink of your choice, draw yourself a little body map and think about where do you feel the physical response to anxiety. When you feel threatened or anxious, how does that play out in your body? And then come back and join us again once you've done that. Hope you found that okay. You've drawn yourself a little body map. So we've thought about how actually anxiety helps us face some of the challenges in life, but actually when it's there's too much anxiety or it's misplaced, then it starts to work against us, and actually it can make us feel really difficult feelings and really difficult things going on in our body when we're anxious. Rachel, how does anxiety affect our mind then?
Yep, so there's also lots of ways that anxiety will affect your mind. And I mentioned the fight, flight or freeze response. So you have the physical response. What happens when that's happening is our thoughts actually become a lot quicker. So that again, it's so you can fight the situation, it's so you can run away, it's so you can make a plan very quick. Again, it's a survival thing. But if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you've got racing thoughts, that's not going to be helpful at all, as we've all probably experienced it sometimes. Racing thoughts becoming more negative. Again, it's a protection thing. Thoughts become more negative. Kind of being very conscious about what people might think of you, being aware that people might know that you're anxious, and that then feeds into the anxiety. So all of those different things as well can affect your mind. In more severe cases, you can actually feel a little bit numb and cut off, and kind of like you're in your own world. And that's when anxiety comes. I mentioned the optimum amount of anxiety, that's when it becomes far beyond, and you functioning can actually, you're kind of walking around a little bit in a bubble, you can't concentrate, it can affect your performance at work and things like that as well.
Yeah. So we've thought about how it affects our body. It has a massive effect on our mind. I'm sure most of us have suddenly woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning with thoughts racing around our mind, or that other point where you've sat down to do something and you just can't concentrate, you can't bring your attention, you can't get your thoughts going because your mind's starting to freeze. The Bible gives us some great scriptures on anxiety. In Psalm 55:22, it says this: "Cast your cares to the Lord, and he will sustain you." In 1 Peter 5:6-7, it says this: "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety onto him, because he cares for you." So God knew that actually as humans we would all experience anxiety at times, that actually it's something that's there to help us, but it can become unhelpful. And when it's unhelpful, actually we can take it to him and we can cast it onto him. This is a normal experience of Christian life, of having to take our fears, our worries, our anxieties to him. But Rachel, give us some of the practical things that we can do when we notice this happening in our body or in our mind. What can we do to help reduce our anxiety?
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways. So again, like Justyn said, always going to the Bible, always kind of saying those verses to yourself are really helpful. There's lots of other things that we can do as well alongside that. So physical exercise, really good for reducing anxiety. It regulates, we have a stress hormone called cortisol, which is produced when we're anxious, but it actually brings that down. So that's really good. Eating well, making sure that you are getting enough sleep, talking to a friend, talking about how you're feeling, sharing that problem, having that connection with somebody. It could be that you seek pastoral care from church as well. People sometimes find it helpful to write their thoughts down and write their worries down, or setting a certain time of the day to think, I'm going to try not to think about that now, get on with everything else where I can, but between 8 and 9, that's when I'm going to really think and let myself worry, and it's called worry time. For some people it really works, for other people it doesn't so much. For some people they find gets to 8 o'clock and the problem's kind of moved aside a little bit, and so that could be really helpful as well for that person.
And it's great to know that we can take our worries to God, can't we? We can have our worry time and we can turn that into our quiet time. That actually can be a prayer. Intentionally directing our worry towards God is actually prayer. That's what Peter tells us to do. we're going to try something that for some of you might be a little bit new, a little bit awkward, might feel a little bit funny, but I'd really encourage you to engage with this. Rachel's going to lead us through some Christian relaxation script. So here's what we'd like you to do. Get yourself in a comfy chair. Make sure you're nice and warm and cozy. You're not going to be interrupted for the next couple of minutes. And Rachel's just going to talk us through a way of relaxing before God. So get comfy, and then Rachel's going to lead us through this Christian relaxation script.
As we begin to relax, close your eyes, settle into a comfortable position, and let any tension slip away. Now meditate on this verse as you move further into relaxation. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God that transcends all understanding will guard your heart and minds in Christ Jesus. Draw near to God, allow His peace to wash over you. Be still. Now notice your breathing. Breathe slowly, deeply, and calmly, allowing the air to move slowly in and slowly out. Breathing in and out, in and out. Keep breathing slowly and calmly as you focus on God. Let your worries drift further away. Allow God's love to reach you. He knows you intimately and completely. He sees and knows everything about you. He delights in you. The Lord is with you always. He is near. Rest in His presence and in His protection. Be still and know that He is God. Continue to relax, dwelling in God's presence, surrounded by His peace, the peace that goes beyond our understanding, the peace that guards our hearts and minds. He is peace. Let that peace wash over you. Continue to rest in God's presence. Know His love for you. God is love. His perfect love casts out fear. You can cast all your worries onto Him. He cares for you and He can set you free. Keep thinking about your breathing and continue to breathe slowly, letting your whole body relax as you focus on God and His love, His peace, His goodness, and His protection. He is close to the brokenhearted. Let Him dwell closely with you. Think about God's goodness and His promises for you. Come to Him with a grateful heart, thanking Him for His love, trusting Him with your future, acknowledging Him in everything, and having faith that He can be your guide. Give Him your worries, your doubts, and your fears. As we come towards the end of this session, meditate on this verse. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. As you go back into the day, know that He is with you and that He loves you. Now when you are ready, open your eyes and slowly start moving and stretching, ready to come back, feeling relaxed and calm in God's presence.
Well, I hope you found that relaxing, whether that's something that you've done something similar before, or maybe that's a brand new practice for you. There's something that you can keep coming back to. God says, be still and know that I am God. And when we're aware in our body that we're feeling anxiety, or in our mind our thoughts are racing, or we're feeling overwhelmed, one of the great things we can do is just stop, relax, breathe, and become aware of God with us and God helping us as we cast our anxiety onto Him. Hope that's been really helpful. We really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for being with us, and as you go on your day, I pray that you would know the peace that passes all understanding as you face all the challenges and anxieties that life will bring you today. God bless you. See you next time.